very tempting when you're manufacturing, trying to get a product to market, to want to cut corners and to save money. But in the end, the truth is, if you make a mistake, it can cost you your business. Hi, my name is Catherine Choi. Very different business. My business is SoYoung. It's a lifestyle brand for modern families that I started in my living room after I had my first child. Our products are now sold in hundreds of stores around the world, including Nordstrom, Whole Foods, and Indigo. And we've had our products featured in quite a few publications like O and People magazine and Martha Stewart Living. We've also had quite a lot of celebrity love. My favorite one being Robert Downey Jr., who we don't have a photo of, and if you ever find one, send it to me and I will send you free stuff. So I'm just here to tell you about my experience with manufacturing. I started with nothing. And basically, in 2007, I was in the third round of sampling with my sixth factory in a process that took a year and a half, and finally received a sample that was great. And I was really excited, and I thought, great. Gave them the purchase order and hunkered down to wait for the product to arrive. And 4 months later, the product arrived. I opened the first box, took the first bag out of the box, and the top was sewn in reverse. And so then I took the second bag out of the box, and the top was sewn in reverse. And when I looked more carefully at the bag, I could see that it had been manufactured according to the second sample, not the third sample. So this was the point at which I realized the risk that I was getting myself into with my business idea. Since that point, I have undergone dozens and dozens of manufacturing cycles, and most successful, some still unsuccessful. And I'm here to share with you what I consider 7 pieces of advice that I would give you if you were to undergo this process. So the most important thing is finding yourself a good manufacturer. How do you do that? In my experience, word of mouth is everything. If you go on Alibaba, you will find hundreds and hundreds of manufacturers who claim that they can make you this product for this price. And we have found that our products have been taken from our website and listed by manufacturers we've never worked with, selling at a price that is lower than what we pay for it. So just a word of advice, you really want to be careful about who you contract with. So when I started, my business was entirely founded on word of mouth. I basically spoke to anybody who was willing to listen about what it was that I was trying to do. And it was amazing how many people knew somebody who'd manufactured something in China or in India. And every time that happened, I would say, do you think that person would be willing to speak with me? And more often than not, they were. And people like sharing their experience and their advice, and they will even point you to the right manufacturer and connect you. So really, references are everything. Another good way to find a good manufacturer is to rely on sourcing agents. And this is actually somebody that I've worked with. His name is Sam Miller, and he's got a great blog called theeastasiaco.com. An expert on manufacturing and sourcing in China. And I'm not being paid to endorse him. He's just someone I've worked with and someone who really helped. But a word of advice about working with sourcing agents is I would negotiate upfront with them a fee that eventually the relationship that you develop with the factory becomes owned by you, so that there isn't always that layer of cost that is going to the sourcing agent. The third thing is, once you have a number of manufacturers that you're kind of vetting out, you want to pay attention to the quality of the initial interactions you have with them. What I mean by that is, do they take a long time to respond to your emails? Do they answer all of the questions that you ask in your emails? Do they stick within the timelines that they say they're going to get you your first samples. The samples that you get, are they of good quality? And one thing to note is that samples are actually made in a sample room at a factory, which is entirely different than a production line. So often you will get a sample that is probably the best version of what you would get in production. So if you get a sample that's of not great quality, that is a big red flag. And the other thing is, all of these interactions should really indicate to you how the relationship tends to continue should you move further with them. Number 4 is, if you can, visit the factory. It goes a long way in meeting face-to-face and establishing goodwill with the factory, and as well, it indicates to them that you're serious about your business. Be prepared to be taken out for a multi-course banquet meal in which you should eat everything that's in front of you. Number 5, so once you have a sample that's been approved, you basically want to mark it in a permanent way that there is no mistaking that this is the actual sample that the factory should follow. I had obviously learned that lesson the hard way. The other thing is that you should have 2 samples at least that are marked, one for the factory and one for your external QA team if you use one. And number 6 is that you should use an external QA team unless you plan on going there yourself, which is, you want to be there for the initial run, perhaps, but the best thing to do is if you are going to continue to manufacture in China, you want to have a team there that you can rely on to be your eyes and your ears. So with an external QA team, they're given a list of what is a pass, what is a fail, and there will be many hours on Skype in which you can get a visual of what's happening during production. And number 7, a hard lesson learned for me was that basically just because you've had one successful run with a factory, don't assume that it's smooth sailing for the next runs, unless you have specific, strict processes in place that the factory adheres to every single time. So what that means is you need sign-off at every phase. You need sampling at every phase. You need to make sure that even if they made the product 10 times before, you still get a sample the 11th time and compare that sample with one that you already have, and make sure that nothing's been downgraded and everything has remained the same. And a really good book to read to learn about some of the things that can happen and do happen in China is a book called Poorly Made in China by Paul Midler. It paints a pretty scary picture. I do have to say that there are good factories in China. You just have to find them. So, as I go through these points with you, I must admit there are many times when I should have followed my own advice. It's very tempting when you're manufacturing, trying to get a product to market, to want to cut corners and to save money. But in the end, the truth is, if you make a mistake, it can cost you your business.